What's up, fellow Sambarians? So today I am putting a carburetor back together. I don't know if you can really see it, but it's in pieces right here. So I thought, I know I have a ton of videos on taking apart the carburetor, putting it back together, and some of the videos are probably hard to watch because I blabber a lot. So I'm going to try not to blabber so much. In this particular video, I'm going to show try to go over common mistakes that are made when putting back the carburetor, putting it back together, so that you don't have that same problem, because it might be kind of hard to watch to go through the whole video, and you might skip a part and you skip 5 seconds, and that might be the difference between putting the needle upside down or whatever. So this one's not going to be like a full takedown, put back together. This is going to be some like the bullet points or the cliff notes of putting back the carburetor. So hopefully this video makes a little more sense, and I'm not blabbering too much. But while we're talking about carburetors, that's what this whole video is going to be about. If you are planning on sending me your carburetor, I'm going to go over a perfect example of what not to do, just because I'm dealing with it right now, and we'll go through some of the mistakes after I finish cleaning some parts that are in the ultrasonic bath right now. But if you want to send your carburetor to me, which I've done so many now, I don't even remember how many, but there's just so many, and that's why I wanted to make this video, because I can put these together with my eyes closed at this point. But I can see how it can be a daunting task for someone who's new to this and has never put a carburetor together or taken it apart, whatever. So if you are someone who wants to send your carburetor to me to clean, because I do offer that as a service here at OK Garage, if you're not aware, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are, just make sure that when you send it to me, you pack it up super well. And I'm talking like, put it in a box. This is like a 10 by 10. Yeah, this is like a 10 by 10 by 10 box. So you can have a good couple of inches of padding, and I'm talking packing peanuts, wrap it in bubble wrap. You want the thing to be hovering inside the box, essentially. You don't want any parts to be on a hard surface if it were to get dropped or kicked or thrown or mishandled, because where is that part? Oh, because I had to throw this part out, because this is your auto choke. We're gonna call it the auto choke. It's like a thermostatic coolant valve that works the choke. So you have two prongs. You got the inlet and an outlet, whatever. Well, it was shipped to me and it was broken, mainly because it was just dropped in a box with some bubble wrap, so it flops around inside. Which I think it's not the guy's fault. It was UPS. They totally didn't package it right for him. So it got dropped, kicked around. This broke off. So thank goodness I have a parts carb where I can take that auto choke off and steal it off of that to put onto his carburetor. But that's just, I just wanted to point that out. If you're going to ship me your carburetor, please be sure to pack it really well, because I don't want it to get here and it be broken, and that's just another, crummy situation with it already being off your sandbar. And it's, let's keep them safe. So really, really wrap it, put it in packing peanuts or something, foam, I don't care, as long as it's not on the hard surface of whatever it's going to sit on in the box, because otherwise stuff like this, old parts are going to break. So this guy, that's trash. So now that I got that out of the way, if you want to send me your carb, make sure you pack it really well. I'm going to get the carb out of the ultrasonic bath, and then we'll start putting it back together, and then I'll go over situations that could get screwed up if it's your first time, so you can make sure to put it together right. So it would, if it's done correctly, it will fire up almost immediately on your sandbar if it's done correctly. So let me get those parts and let's get going. Okay, so let's just start with some basics. You got your carburetor all apart. like this one, and you threw it in an ultrasonic bath because that's how you're cleaning it, do not assume that it is clean. Well, that is clean and ready to go. I always, every time I take it out of the ultrasonic bath, I get some jet spray, carb choke, parts cleaner, whatever, and I spray it in all the little orifices. Your jet, this needle here, that little port, all the little ports. You want to make sure you just jet them out because some gunky crap from, ultrasonic could vibrate inside those little ports and get caught. So always spray that out. And when you take that all apart, you're going to have your little screen where your needle will sit, which I have the needle apart because I was cleaning it. There's two different styles of these. There's this one with the 10 millimeter nut end, and then there's another style of this screen that's just got two flat spots that fits a 10 millimeter wrench, and that's pretty much it. So just keep in mind they don't all look like that, so don't worry. But spray out your screen. These are usually always full of crud too. So I spray both directions with carb cleaner. Clean your screens because you don't want to take the whole thing apart and then have this thing still full of junk. So that's a thing. A mistake is make sure that when you take all your parts out of the ultrasonic, jet spray all the little ports. Okay, here's another one. When you put your screen back in there, and your needle, here's your needle inside. So I always clean these too. Inside there's a little spring, you can see it right there. Make sure that you put your needle back in there the correct direction, which is pointy end down. Boink. Just like that. So make sure you reinstall that correctly. Now, when you go and put your float back on, after you've made sure that it's all good, this thing can go on here either directions. So it can go on this way, which is upside down, and it can go on this way. So basically, if you put it on the right way, the float can only go so far before it stops. If you put it on upside down, you'll realize that it will go all the way down like so. So just make sure that you put the float back on the right direction. Right side up. So you put your little pin back in through there. Bang. And so this guy it's got a little stopper, so it will only go so far. So make sure you put your float back on the right direction. Okay, so accelerator pump. I already installed it, but basically when you put this thing back in, it was actually missing the spring inside here. So at some point somebody put the accelerator pump in the bowl and didn't put the spring, and it probably is some kind of spring in there, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you do the accelerator pump, it's a long spring was missing in this one, so that probably was an issue. But when you go and put your new accelerator pump in, I always put assembly grease on the plunger end of it. So when it goes inside here, there's usually some wear marks on the metal where it's been wearing its whole lifetime. So I just put a little grease on there to help it get in there and not flip up on accident when you're installing it. So just make sure that you add a little bit of assembly grease on that, and then obviously screw it all in. Okay, the fun part. The bearing, the weighted rod and bearing. So if you're looking at your bowl, you have this hole right here, which is on the outside of the gasket. Then you have this hole right here that is inside the gasket. So if you're confused as to where this rod and bearing went, it always goes inside the gasketed part. Now, this is what I do. I don't know, and this works for me every time. Obviously, clean the little ball. Sometimes they get really crusty, and that's why when you take apart the carburetor, make sure you take the bowl off straight down. Otherwise, you risk losing this ball here. So take the bowl off the carburetor straight down. So the ball goes in first. And then you'll notice your rod will have some wear marks. One side's smooth, one side's got some wear marks from rubbing on that ball. I usually put the clean side down on top of the ball, just so it's got a nice new surface to rub on that ball. So make sure you put that back in there and everything back in there in its place. So it's good to go. Okay, so let's point out another common mistake made. So when you put your accelerator pump arm back in, you'll notice that there are two slots. Kind of see it there where the pump arm, there's two slots. The truck is the inner slot. So we're going to go ahead and put that back on the inner slot. And then, here's the fun part. This part, it gets a little tricky. So you have a lock washer and a washer and your big screw. You're going to make sure that that lock washer and the lock washer and the washer are on the carburetor first before you put the pump arm in. Otherwise it gets bound up and it won't work. So that's kind of fun. Take your time getting. There we go. Okay. So once you get the lock washer and the washer in there, then you can tighten down the screw fully tight, and that way it will not bind up, because otherwise it'll bind up. And we should have a functioning accelerator pump arm. The only other time I've seen it on the outer hole was on an ECVT van. And so I wanted to try it on my own truck. So I actually put it on the outer hole to see if it made any difference. And I don't know, kind of made me feel like, kind of feels like the truck is a little bit peppier now that I have it on the outer arm, because basically it's pushing down on that accelerator pump a little bit more than it would be on the truck. So I don't know, could just be all in my head, but it feels like it's a little peppier. So you could put it on the outer hole if you want, but if it does cause the truck to run different, then you'll know why. But I also feel like my truck needed a good carburetor cleaning anyways, and it really made a huge difference. Okay, so once I ultrasonic clean everything, it really gets all the everything off. So I use this 3-in-1 oil, re-lube up all the points. All right, so now I will show what happens. There's a common mistake that happens on this side when I get the auto choke off of the other carburetor. I'll show what comes up here and is an issue. And one of our last mistakes. So I'm actually taking this auto choke off the parts carb. It was in a fire, but that still works. So we have our choke flap. Now, when you're replacing, even this piston choke is good, so I'll save it. It's a good, like I said, it's a good way to test it. This one, however, is toast. If I put my finger, what the heck is going on here? If I put my finger on the end of that diaphragm and then let it go, it falls right down. So obviously that melted probably in the fire, so that's no good. But the piston set choke, that's good. It's holding, so we can save that. I'll clean it and save it. But if you are replacing your piston, your set piston choke, whatever piston choke set, this deal, that's why it's always good to take really good pictures and stuff. But there's one little spring flap right there that this arm will go in. So when you take this apart to put this on, you have to take the auto choke off, and you have to make sure that this choke flap return spring gets put back in that hole. Because if it's not back in that hole, that choke flap will not come back, or it won't move. It will open, but it won't come back, or vice versa, depending on where it's at. It's not going to move because that spring is what brings it. So that could be an issue if you rebuilt the carburetor and you're having problems. It just goes back in that little hole right there. You'll see it because you'll see that spring with a hole, like something should go in there. Or obviously if you do this, the choke flap is not going to come back. So I think, like I said, I'm taking that off, putting it on here because it was sent to me broken. But this guy's looking pretty clean, pretty dang clean. But everything's going back on it good. O-rings, new O-rings. Like I said, that piston choke is good. We'll put the new solenoids on it. Air, fuel cutoff solenoid. Make sure, again, another thing, you have to pin the new solenoid yourself, which is really easy. Just look inside there and you'll see, when you put the air fuel solenoid into the fuel cutoff solenoid in the pin slot there, you got to make sure you put it in the right direction. So it should click when it goes in there correctly. And if it does click, that's good. You can yank on it. It shouldn't pop out. But if you pull on it and it pops out, flip it upside down. Flip it 180 degrees. It might be upside down. So it's got to go in that thing one way. And that covers that. I think I've covered most everything I really wanted to talk about. When you get your new gaskets, if you bought them from me or Japan or whatever, you'll have your plastic insulator. You will have a paper gasket, let's see, this one got it. You can't really tell, but in between the plastic insulator and the carb, there's a paper gasket right in there. So that will go in between the carburetor and the plastic insulator. This is facing on the outside, which gets a rubber seal. And you'll see there is also a little rubber seal right there that essentially, and I cover all this in videos, but it covers up this coolant port right here. So basically it goes plastic insulator, paper gasket, and in that paper gasket there is a pocket to put that rubber seal, which then all sandwiches up against the carburetor. Again, you will see all this stuff when you take your carburetor off. This isn't something that you shouldn't see, so you should know when you take your carb off. But I just wanted to make that clear that it's really good to replace that or make sure you put it back in there, because coolant runs into that port. And if you don't put that rubber seal in there, coolant is going to soak into your paper gasket and ruin the paper gasket. You can see the paper gasket right there. So in between the plastic insulator and the carburetor, inside there's a rubber O-ring. I don't have any down here with me at the moment, so I can't really show it. But if you buy the gaskets, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Just pay attention to how you reinstall everything. So I think that's it, other than obviously making sure that you put all the hoses on the right ports. You got your two fuels, which you can't mix up because they're two different sizes. Your air fuel solenoid, which you can't mix up because, again, they're two different sizes. So that's really hard to screw up. One of those ports there is, I believe on the left side, is the vacuum advance right there. That one comes from, I'm pretty sure, the, let's see here. That guy, where am I looking? Here we go. Actually, that runs somewhere else. I don't know, but that's why it's really good to take videos and pictures of what you're doing beforehand. I don't know where they're located off the top of my head. And I did make a video showing where those hoses all go. But this was just a video on basically some possible screw-ups that could cause a brand new clean carb not to function properly. Because it should work perfect. I have not had any issues with brand new cleaned carbs. So if there is an issue, then one thing could have gone wrong and thrown everything out of whack. So hopefully that was helpful. If you clean your carburetor yourself, which I recommend, that's why I make videos. Those are just some things that could get screwed up when you're putting it back together. And if you don't want to risk any of that, you are more than welcome to send it to me, and I will clean it and inspect it for a small fee. I've been told I should be charging more, but that's okay. I really enjoy doing it, so um, I'm not here to rip people off because they can't do it. I'm just here to help them out because I know how important it is to have a running sandbar. You start to have withdrawals when that sandbar is not running. So again, you can send it to me, and that's why I went over making sure you pack it well. But hopefully that was helpful. A few things you can just go through real quick and see what possibly went wrong. Or there's all my other videos showing how to take it apart, put it back together, all that good stuff, and reinstall it on the truck. Cool. Check out okgarage.com. For any of these parts that I was talking about, I have them all, or you can find them in Japan, of course. Yeah, website okgarage.com. Like, subscribe, all that cool stuff if you'd like. I try to stay on the up and up with videos, so future Sambarians or future Actitos are going to be doing a lot more Bravo stuff here in the future. Can't wait. Got a bunch of Bravo carburetor parts on order, so I can take the you can't see them, but the Bravo carburetor out and clean it, because I think mine needs a good cleaning. And I'll have videos on that soon, hopefully stocking more carburetor parts for the Bravo. Yeah, my brain's not working good right now. I can't think of what really is going on other project wise, but yeah, just more carburetor stuff. So cool. Thanks again for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. I will see you on the next one.